The distress signal. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Threnkai activated the emergency broadcast. The holographic display showed a distant star system, marked in red as a disaster zone. 3 days ago, we lost contact with mining colony Theta 7, the ambassador announced, his crystalline body refracting the chamber's light. The colony housed 50,000 workers from 12 different species. A solar flare destroyed their communications array and damaged their evacuation ships. Council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Mining colony Theta 7 was in the dead zone, a region of space where gravitational anomalies made navigation nearly impossible. Ships that entered often never returned. How long until the next solar event? Asked Councillor Vex, a floating energy being from the Lumina Collective. Threnkai's light patterns dimmed with distress. 48 hours. The colony's radiation shields will fail. Everyone will die. We must send rescue ships immediately, declared Ambassador Kira, a 4-armed Valtorian diplomat. Impossible, Vex replied coldly. The dead zone's gravitational fields would destroy any rescue fleet. We would lose the rescuers along with the colonists. It is tragic, but we cannot risk more lives. The debate continued for hours. Species after species explained why a rescue was impossible. The navigation was too dangerous. The time frame was too short. The cost in lives and resources too great. One by one, they voted against the rescue mission. Finally, only one delegate had not spoken, Ambassador Sarachin of Earth. Earth votes yes, she said simply. The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. The Terran delegate stood, her small frame dwarfed by the mass of alien beings around her. Ambassador Chen, Threnkai said carefully, perhaps you do not understand the danger. The dead zone has claimed hundreds of ships. No species has successfully navigated it. I understand perfectly, Sarah replied. 50,000 people are going to die unless someone helps them. Earth will help them. Councillor Vex's energy form pulsed with what might have been amusement. Ambassador, your species joined the council only 5 years ago. You have no experience with such disasters. This is not a situation where human bravery can overcome physics. Sarah met the councillor's gaze steadily. On Earth, we have a saying, we never leave anyone behind. It doesn't matter if the odds are bad or if other people think it's impossible. Someone needs help, we go. It's that simple. You would risk your entire rescue fleet on a mission that cannot succeed? Threnkai asked. Yes, Sarah said. Because if we don't try, then we've already failed. The council watched in stunned silence as the human ambassador left the chamber. They had seen human determination before, but this seemed like madness. Still, there was something in her voice, absolute certainty that had no place in such a hopeless situation. The volunteer fleet. Captain Marcus Drake stood on the bridge of the Utes Pathfinder, studying the navigational data for the dead zone. Behind him, his crew worked quietly, preparing for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. Captain, we're receiving docking requests, reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Walsh, his first officer. Every available human ship in the sector wants to join the rescue fleet. Marcus nodded. He'd expected nothing less. When Earth had put out the call for volunteers, they'd been overwhelmed with responses. Cargo haulers, mining vessels, even private yachts, every human ship capable of carrying passengers had volunteered. How many ships total? Marcus asked. 73, sir. Including civilian vessels that have no business in a disaster zone. Marcus thought about telling them no, about refusing the civilians and taking only military vessels. But that wasn't how humans worked. When someone needed help, everyone who could assist showed up. Accept all volunteers, Marcus ordered. But make sure they understand the risks. Most of us probably won't make it back. The response from the volunteer fleet was unanimous, they understood the risks and were coming anyway. As the fleet assembled, alien observers watched from a distance. The sight of 73 human ships preparing to enter the dead zone was unprecedented. Most species would send their best ships with professional crews. Humans sent everyone: merchants, miners, families who owned small transport vessels. It was chaos that somehow felt organized. "This is Captain Drake to all vessels," Marcus broadcast across the fleet. "Thank you for volunteering. What we're about to do has never been done successfully. The gravitational anomalies in the dead zone will try to tear our ships apart. Our navigation systems will fail. Some of us won't make it through. But 50,000 people are counting on us, and we're not letting them down." The response came from every ship in the fleet: "Copy that, Captain. We're ready." Into the dead zone. The journey to the dead zone took 16 hours at maximum speed. During that time, Marcus worked with his navigation team to plot the safest possible route through the gravitational chaos. "There is no safe route," his navigator, Lieutenant James Park, said bluntly. "The gravitational fields shift constantly. What looks clear one moment might collapse the next." "Then we adapt," Marcus replied. "Humans are good at that." As they approached the dead zone's boundary, every sensor on every ship screamed warnings. The space ahead looked normal, but instruments showed reality itself was twisted into impossible shapes. "All ships, this is Pathfinder," Marcus announced. "Follow our lead. Stay close but not too close. If a ship gets in trouble, the vessels nearest will assist. No one gets left behind." "That's an order." The fleet entered the dead zone together. Immediately, everything went wrong. Gravitational forces pulled ships in different directions. Navigation systems failed as predicted. Ships that had been flying in perfect formation suddenly found themselves scattered across thousands of kilometers. "Captain, we've lost contact with 12 vessels," Walsh reported, her voice tight with stress. "Re-establish contact. Use old-fashioned radio if you have to. Visual signals. Anything." For the next 6 hours, the human fleet fought its way through the dead zone. It was navigation by instinct and experience, captains using their knowledge of physics and gut feeling to guide their ships through impossible conditions. When the cargo hauler Prairie Wind lost engine power, 3 nearby ships immediately altered course to assist, forming a protective formation while emergency repairs were made. When the mining vessel Rockbreaker was caught in a gravitational spiral, 2 military frigates used their tractor beams to pull her free, nearly destroying their own engines in the process. Humans didn't have the most advanced technology in the galaxy. They didn't have the fastest ships or the most powerful weapons. But they had something that made other species uncomfortable to witness: absolute refusal to abandon each other. On the colony, the 50,000 stranded workers watched their failing sensors in despair. The solar event was 30 hours away. No rescue ships had arrived. They had accepted their fate. Then, impossibly, ships began appearing on their sensors. Human ships, battered and damaged but still flying, emerging from the dead zone that should have destroyed them. The rescue. Colony Administrator Thelcor stared at the display in disbelief. 73 ships had entered the dead zone. According to his sensors, only 61 had made it through. 12 ships lost, hundreds of humans dead, and they were still coming. "Open communication with the lead vessel," Thelcor ordered, his forearms trembling. Captain Drake's face appeared on the screen. He looked exhausted, his uniform torn from helping with emergency repairs during the crossing. "This is Captain Drake of the Terran Fleet. We're here to evacuate your colony. We have 27 hours before the solar event. That's enough time, but we need to move fast. Captain, your fleet, you lost ships getting here." 12 vessels, Drake confirmed. "But we got 61 through. Now let's make sure their sacrifice means something. How many people do you need evacuated?" The rescue operation was the most chaotic and efficient thing Thelcor had ever witnessed. Human ships landed in impossible locations, loading colonists with a speed that defied safety protocols. Cargo haulers designed for minerals filled their holds with families. Mining vessels stripped out equipment to make room for more passengers. The civilian ship Wanderer, a small family transport, made 17 trips between the surface and orbit, carrying refugees each time despite dangerous radiation levels. Her captain, a woman named Jessica Torres, had calculated that she could make more trips if she ignored safety margins. "You're going to destroy your ship," Thelcor warned her. "Then I'll destroy it saving people," Jessica replied. "That's what ships are for." As the hours passed, the human fleet worked without rest. Crews that should have collapsed from exhaustion kept going through sheer determination. Ships pushed engines beyond their limits. Safety protocols were bent or broken in the race against time. With 6 hours remaining before the solar event, the last colonist boarded the last ship. "All personnel accounted for," reported Walsh, her voice hoarse from coordinating the evacuation. 50,000 souls aboard our vessels." Marcus allowed himself one moment of relief. They'd done it. Every single colonist was safe. Now they just had to get everyone back through the dead zone. "All ships, this is Pathfinder. Excellent work. Now comes the hard part, getting home. Stay together. Help each other. We didn't come this far to lose people now." The journey back was even worse than the approach. The ships were overloaded with refugees, straining engines, and life support systems. The gravitational anomalies seemed worse, as if the dead zone itself was angry at being conquered. The cargo hauler Mountain King lost structural integrity halfway through. Rather than abandon ship, the vessels around her formed a protective shell, using their own hulls to shield her from the worst gravitational stresses while emergency repairs were made. When the mining vessel Deep Explorer ran out of fuel, 3 other ships shared their reserves, leaving themselves dangerously low but ensuring no one was left behind. Humans didn't just say, "We never leave anyone behind." They lived it, even when it was inconvenient, even when it was dangerous, even when it meant risking their own survival. 34 hours after entering the dead zone, 58 human ships emerged back into normal space. 3 more had been lost in the return journey, but they'd gotten their passengers off first, ensuring no refugees died. Waiting at the border was the entire Galactic Council fleet, sent to recover what they assumed would be wreckage and bodies. Instead, they found triumph. The aftermath. The Council's reaction. The Galactic Council emergency session was packed with representatives from every major species. Holographic displays showed footage of the human rescue fleet emerging from the dead zone, battered but victorious, carrying 50,000 refugees who should have died. Ambassador Threnkai stood before the assembly, his crystalline form pulsing with emotions that his species rarely displayed. "The humans did the impossible," he announced. "They lost 15 ships and over 300 crew members. But they saved every single colonist. 50,000 lives that we had written off as lost." Counselor Vex floated at the center of the chamber, his energy form dimmer than usual. "Ambassador Chen, your species defied all logical analysis. The dead zone should have destroyed your entire fleet. How did you succeed where mathematics said you would fail?" Sarah Chen stood, looking at the assembled aliens with tired but proud eyes. "Because we didn't calculate odds or measure acceptable losses. We just focused on bringing everyone home. When you make that your only goal, you'd be surprised what becomes possible." "Your losses were significant," observed Ambassador Kira. 15 ships, over 300 lives. "Do your people consider this a victory?" "We mourn every person we lost," Sarah replied. "They were heroes who died saving others. But yes, we consider it a victory. Because 50,000 people are alive who wouldn't be if we'd listened to the council and done nothing." The chamber fell silent. Species that had existed for millions of years looked at representatives from a world barely out of its own solar system, and felt something they rarely experienced: humility. A new delegate rose to speak, Ambassador Zektar of the Kryn Coalition, a military power known for their pragmatic approach to warfare and rescue operations. "The Kryn Coalition has studied your rescue operation extensively," Zektar said, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully. "Your tactics were reckless. Your safety protocols were violated repeatedly. By all military doctrine, your mission should have failed catastrophically. And yet," he continued, "you succeeded. Not through superior technology or careful planning, but through something we don't have a word for in our language. This concept of refusing to abandon anyone, regardless of cost or danger. Sarah smiled slightly. We call it being human. The refugees speak. The council had invited several rescued colonists to testify about their experience. Felkor, the colony administrator, was first. I have worked in space for 40 years, he began. I have seen rescue operations before. Professional, efficient operations where crews calculate exactly how many they can save and leave the rest. I expected the same from the humans. His forearms gestured expressively. Instead, I watched civilian vessels, family ships, make dangerous multiple trips to save a few more people. I watched captains destroy their engines pushing beyond safety limits. I watched humans who had never met any of us risk death because they couldn't bear to leave anyone behind. A young Valtorian engineer named Sela stood next. I was in the deepest part of the mine when the evacuation order came. I thought I'd be left behind, everyone else was closer to the surface. But a human in a small shuttle risked her life coming down to get me. When I asked why, she said, because you're down here, and I'm not leaving without you. Testimony after testimony painted the same picture. Humans who treated perfect strangers like family worth dying for. Crews who shared their last food rations with refugees. Captains who gave their personal quarters to injured colonists while they slept on their own bridges. The proposal. After hours of testimony, Councillor Vex spoke. The council must acknowledge that we failed the colonists of Theta 7. We deemed them unsavable and abandoned them to die. The humans proved us wrong. More than that, Threnkai added, they've shown us that we've lost something important in our advancement. We've become so focused on logic and probability that we forgot about moral imperative. Vex's energy form pulsed with what might have been agreement. I propose a formal recognition. The human rescue fleet should receive the Council's highest honor for heroism. And Earth should be offered a permanent seat on the Council Security Committee. The vote was unanimous. But Saracen surprised them all by standing. We appreciate the honor, but Earth has a counter-proposal. We'll accept the recognition, but what we really want is to establish the Galactic Rescue Service. Explain, Vex prompted. A fleet dedicated to going where others won't, saving people others deem unsavable. Staffed by volunteers from every species, but trained by humans in our rescue methods. Sarah's eyes were bright with passion. Because after what we just did, we can't go back to a galaxy where people are abandoned because the odds are bad. The chamber erupted in discussion. Such a service would be expensive, dangerous, and would inevitably result in casualties. By any logical calculation, it was a poor investment of resources. And yet, every species present had citizens who had been on that colony. Citizens who were alive only because humans had ignored logic and done the right thing anyway. The vote took 3 hours of debate, but eventually passed. The Galactic Rescue Service would be established, headquartered on Earth, and commanded by Captain Marcus Drake. 6 months later. Captain Drake stood on the bridge of the new GRS flagship Hope's Light, watching his crew prepare for their first official mission. The ship was a miracle of combined technology, human durability married to alien innovation. His crew was equally mixed. Humans worked alongside Valtorians, Kryn, Luminous Collective members, and dozens of other species. All volunteers. All committed to the same mission. Captain, we're receiving a distress call, reported his communications officer, a crystalline being named Thren, nephew of Ambassador Threnkai. Research station under attack by pirates. Requesting immediate assistance. Distance? Drake asked. 4 light years. We can be there in 6 hours. Drake looked at his mixed-species crew. 6 months ago, most of them wouldn't have considered such a rescue. The station was in contested space. The odds of arriving without casualties were low. Now, they didn't hesitate. Set course, Drake ordered. Maximum speed. We've got people who need help. As Hope's Light jumped to FTL, Drake thought about the mission that had started all this. 15 ships lost, over 300 humans dead, and 50,000 lives saved. The galaxy had called it impossible. Humans had called it necessary. "Sir, incoming message from the station," Thren reported. "They're asking if we're really coming. They say the odds of reaching them are low." Drake smiled. "Tell them the Galactic Rescue Service doesn't calculate odds. We just show up. Because that's what the galaxy does now, we don't leave anyone behind." The human legacy. In the months following the rescue, something changed in the galaxy. Species that had existed for millions of years began questioning their own assumptions about acceptable losses and impossible missions. The Kryn Coalition reformed their military rescue protocols, adding human concepts like "no one left behind" to their doctrine. The Luminous Collective started training their ship's crews in improvised problem-solving rather than just following established procedures. Even Counselor Vex, the pragmatic energy being who had initially opposed the rescue, found himself advocating for missions he once would have deemed illogical. Ambassador Sarachin watched this transformation with quiet satisfaction. Earth hadn't changed the galaxy through superior technology or military might. They'd changed it by refusing to accept that some people were worth saving and others weren't. On the colony world of New Theta, the 50,000 rescued colonists built a memorial. At its center stood a simple stone with words in every language of the galaxy: "They came when no one else would. They saved us when the galaxy said we couldn't be saved." They were human. But to humans, it wasn't extraordinary. It was just what you did when someone needed help. You showed up. You did your best. You didn't calculate odds or measure costs. You simply refused to leave anyone behind. The new standard. 1 year after the rescue, the Galactic Rescue Service responded to 127 emergency calls. They saved mining crews trapped in collapsing asteroids. They evacuated colonies during natural disasters. They recovered lost research vessels and defended civilian ships from pirates. Their casualty rate was higher than any conventional rescue service, humans and aliens who died because they went where others wouldn't. But their save rate was 100%. Every person they went after, they brought home. Other species tried to understand this human philosophy. Some called it reckless. Others called it inspiring. The humans just called it doing the right thing. Captain Drake stood on the bridge of Hope's Light, now a vessel that had become famous across the galaxy. His crew was preparing for another impossible rescue, a diplomatic vessel trapped in a collapsing wormhole. "Captain, probability of mission success is 34%, reported his Kryn tactical officer. "And probability of those diplomats surviving if we don't go?" Drake asked. 0%, sir." Drake smiled. "Then I'll take 34% over 0 any day. Set course. Let's go save some people." As the ship jumped to FTL, Ambassador Chen watched from Earth, knowing that humanity had given the galaxy something more valuable than technology or military power. They'd given them hope, the knowledge that somewhere in the darkness, someone would always come when you called for help. The galaxy had laughed when humans said, "We never leave anyone behind." Now, it was the foundational principle of interstellar rescue operations. Because sometimes, the most powerful force in the universe isn't technology or logic or careful calculation. Sometimes, it's simply the refusal to accept that anyone is beyond saving, combined with the determination to prove that nothing is truly impossible when you care enough to try. That was humanity's gift to the stars. And the galaxy was better for it. The end.